I'm Dr. Edward F. Woods. I've been a member since the Dark Ages, 1973.
I'm his son, Jonathan Woods. I've been a member since 1988.
Well, he was a member of the 2nd Regiment as a chaplain, and he served industriously in that capacity.
I represent Ebenezer Woods, who was a Massachusetts man. He fought at the Battle of Bunker Hill and the Battle of Brattleboro in Vermont. He formed the Woods of Vermont Rangers. My understanding was he was quite a marksman. In the evenings he would hunt for dinner of raccoons and varmint, and so that the redcoats wearing their big red jackets provided an ample target for him to shoot at.
I became intrigued with something called the Society of the Cincinnati, and at the Harvard Musical Association I ran into a chap who was the secretary of that organization at that time, and he said, "Golly, do you have any representatives back there in the revolution?" And I said, I think I do. And I learned that I was a representative of Mr. Magoon of the 2nd Regiment.
And in 1972-73, the internet wasn't around, so you were really checking gravestones and family Bibles. And
that's so true. And
I have to say, in my own case, I joined because of this man right here. When he was secretary of the New Hampshire Society, he was always searching for new lines and new people to represent those lines, and he found one for Ebenezer Woods, and it turned out to be myself. And after speaking with the secretary of the Massachusetts Society, Arch O'Reilly, they were willing to loan the Propositus to the New Hampshire Society for a time. And now over the last 30+ years, I've had the great pleasure of getting to be more involved with this organization and getting more involved with this man, and enjoying our time down in Washington together for special boys' weekends, and our wives would come down sometimes. But some of those early times when Dad and I would meet in Washington for 48 hours and find each other on a whole new relationship, from young son to older son to young adult.
should be in the forefront of their efforts to publicize the revolution and contributions of the past great men who put this country together.
I would say that those first American heroes, while not perfect, were pretty incredible men. Prior to 1770, nobody was free in the world. Everybody was under a monarch, a czar, some other reign. There was no such thing as a free man, free woman. At the end of the war, that changed. We created a brand new organization, a brand new republic that was an experiment at first, and now here we are 245 years later. The experiment seems to be working. It took a little while for all things to happen, but over time, because of that war, women have the right to vote, the civil rights movement happened, equal rights for marriage. None of that would have happened if those great heroes back in 1776 and 1783 did not fight that war. It was a long, bloody war, and the results have changed the world for forever. Cincinnati and some of its partners is the organization that's going to help lead that change and strengthen education in this country for the future. So the Society of the Cincinnati is the oldest hereditary patriotic organization in the country. And because of that, each member feels charged with a particular responsibility, not only to the organization, but to our actual propositi. as past President General Ross Perry frequently used to say, he could feel his prepositous's hand on his shoulder. If everybody is sort of told to go out and do something, you know, some of it happens and some of it doesn't. But if 4,000 people are charged with the responsibility to remember, therefore, that vast event, the fight of arms for freedom, it's, I think, far more compelling, and that the 4,000 members of this organization feel charged with the responsibility to carry forth. A little over 2 years ago in Williamsburg, Virginia, I had the great privilege and honor to be voted in as the President General of the Society of the Cincinnati. Prior to that, I had served in 5 other trienniums, but this was obviously the culmination of all those other years. I've never been more honored or proud of an organization. It's probably a personal highlight for my life. It's hard to imagine what I could do in the next 30, 40, 50 years that could top this great adventure.
Promote in a large way this special eagle for individuals who he felt stood out. I have no more privilege in sporting it out than 11 others, wonderful gentlemen that have been so promoted in the past. And to them we are more indebted, and mine was a very insignificant effort.
For meritorious service above and beyond, Forrest Bregoff said at that triennial when he called you up on stage to present it to you.
Well, he might have been a little partial. You know, he was a dear friend.
So that was about a decade ago, and now you're 98 years old and still going strong. I think you made a pretty good choice.
We were up there and fumbling around with the elderly odds and ends. He just thumbed through and he said, this is called the Declaration of Independence. And further study, we found that it had been on a picture down in the living room, but apparently the people that ran the show at that time thought there were better things that we could illustrate downstairs. The firm was 11 Beacon Street, Boston, and it was a pouring rain, and I wrapped it in the Boston Globe, and we took it down, and I've had trouble finding a parking space, so it was on the other side of Boston or something. So here was our the pouring rain dragging this instrument across town. But the gentleman at the office, he said, would you mind if I took it out in my lab and took the frame off for a moment? He disappeared for 7 or 8 minutes, it seemed, or longer. And I thought, gee, by all means, I wonder if it is worth something, and he's gone out the back door with it, and then came back, and he said, well, this is an authentic version of the Declaration of Independence. It represents a very historic and interesting group that is trying to promote interest in why we should be aware of the revolution.
And for the New Hampshire Society, we are so incredibly fortunate to to have this building and the museum up on the hill to be our clubhouse, if you will. You know, this very room we're sitting in here is the room where the New Hampshire Society was actually founded. And for the building to still be in the shape that it's in, yes, it's, you know, it's had some repairs and some nicks and nats along the way, and a new roof here or there, but it's incredible for this building to still be here and to be a living example, a living memorial for this town and for this country to help demonstrate.
Yeah, exactly.
And these are folks that are volunteering their time, their treasure, their talent, and really making a go of a fairly difficult project, but one that I think brings enthusiasm and wonder to this town